All right, ready? Here we go. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Navigate STEM Speaker Series, sponsored by STEM Starter Academy. STEM Starter Academy is a program of the Department of Higher Education, and STEM Starter Academy is located at each of the 15 community colleges in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. SSA is here to support students interested in STEM, degrees, certificates, and careers. We offer success coaching, internship support, scholarships, mentoring, a speaker series, and more. To get involved, contact me. I'm Bridget Berger, the director of the Cape Cod Regional STEM Network and STEM Starter Academy at Cape Cod Community College. My email is there on the screen. I'll type it in the chat. It's bberger@capecod.edu. For today's speaker event, we have Lieutenant Chris Heydrich and his team from the U.S. Army to talk with you about STEM careers in the Army. I am super excited about this event today. I welcome you all. I would ask for you all to mute while we're listening to the speakers, and they're going to speak for about half an hour, and at 2:45, I will moderate questions that you may have. You can type them into the chat. Type them either to me or to everyone, and then I'll ask the team questions and they can field those questions. So I'm going to turn it over to First Lieutenant Chris Heydrich. Thank you so much for being here with your team today.
Great. Thank you, Bridget. Thank you for that introduction. And we're very excited to be here with you guys today. Thank you for taking the time to join this presentation and learn about how the Army can help you in your STEM career. So we'll go ahead and move forward to our introductions. I have myself, Lieutenant Chris Heydrich, Staff Sergeant Juan Garcia, and Sergeant First Class Benjamin Gallagher. Next slide. So a little bit about myself and my Army career path. So I'm originally from Columbia, Missouri. I got an economics degree from the John Jay College of Criminal Justice, and I branched engineer. My Army timeline so far has been, I went to basic training at Fort Benning, the engineer officer course in Fort Leonard Wood, and then I was able to do my platoon leader time out in Joint Base Lewis McChord in Washington, just south of Seattle. And currently I'm here as the executive officer in the South Shore Recruiting Company out of Brockton. Looking at some of the pictures, probably one of the coolest things I got to do as an engineer, aside from leading a platoon, was we were called down to Mendocino in California during the wildfires a couple years ago. And we spent a month on ground with the firefighters, working with the community to put out the fires and protect everybody down there. So a lot of great opportunities in the STEM field in the Army, and you're going to be able to do a lot of things you never thought you'd be able to do. So it's pretty cool. We'll go ahead and move to the next slide, and Sergeant First Class Benjamin Gallagher will go ahead and introduce himself.
All right, really excited to be here today. My name is Sergeant First Class Gallagher. I've been a recruiter now for 2 years. I actually grew up in Cape Cod, Massachusetts. I joined the Army in 2010, and I've been serving for about 10 years now. I originally held the job of artillery and then moved to recruiter, so I've been in Plymouth. While serving, I've been stationed in 3 different areas. I was at Fort Lewis to start. I then moved to Fort Drum, and then I went to Schofield Barracks, Hawaii, which I absolutely loved. And now I'm back home. I actually grew up on the Cape and went to 4 Seas myself for about 2 years, and I worked on an associate's degree for criminal justice with a minor in business management. I never really completed it, but it's something I'm still working on to this day. I'm actually going for my bachelor's degree inside the Army, so I'm very excited because I'm a few classes away from finishing that up. And when I get done with this, I'm planning on retiring and being a correctional officer. So that's pretty much it for me. Staff Sergeant Garcia is going to move on now. So next slide.
Awesome. Hey, thank you very much, Sergeant Gallagher. My name is Staff Sergeant Garcia. I'm originally from the great state of Wisconsin, a little small town called Whitewater, and I have been in the Army for 10 years. I've held 4 different jobs in the Army, and one of them being small arms artillery repairman, which is pretty much a weapons mechanic, a military police, an Army recruiter, and even a drill sergeant. I've been active duty and in the Army Reserve, Reserve being my main specialty, because I have been in it longer than I have been in the Army active duty. And some of the locations I've been assigned to are Camp Carroll, South Korea, Fort Bliss, Texas, Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and we're currently now here in Plymouth, Massachusetts. So I've been all over the place. It's been fun, and I can't wait till to be in many more locations. So right now, that's a little bit about me. I'll pass it on to Lieutenant Heydrich so he can give you guys the agenda.
Awesome. So the main focus of today is to give you a brief overview of the differences between the active duty and the reserves, and then also the officer and the enlisted side. Knowing a lot of you guys are in community college, we want to give you the path to know what you can do tomorrow to enhance your career, but also if you wanted to join the officer side, what you could do once you receive your bachelor's degree. So we'll go over that. We're going to talk about the education benefits and how the Army can help you fund your schooling and also continue your schooling while you're serving, whether that's the reserve or active duty. And then most importantly today, we're going to go over some of the STEM opportunities and how the Army can really accelerate your career and put you above your peers, not only while you're in school, but in the long run. And then at the end, we'll have our contact info and a Q&A session. Next slide.
All right, so I will go over the active duty Army. When it comes to joining the active duty, you can choose a contract from anywhere between 3 to 6 years, but we're actually now doing a 2-year plan. So you can join for 2 years and then do 2 years active and then 2 years reserves. Some people are doing this if they really don't know the job they want. If they're unsure between active and reserves, it's a really quick contract and it just gets your foot in the door for what you're going to do with your career. So also while serving, like I said, we've all moved around a lot to different duty locations. You're going to get the opportunity to live a lot of different places, to include outside the United States. Some of the places we have that aren't connected, like we have Hawaii, Korea, Germany, and even Italy. So it's a lot of great opportunities. Like I said, I went to Hawaii and it was beautiful. It was awesome to be stationed there. I got to see a lot. One of the best things about the Army is you become a master of your craft. What I mean by that is you get an extension of technical training. What we see a lot is people get into the Army, they pick their job, they really love it, they invest their time in it, and they can take everything that they learned in their experience and move it to the outside world, into the civilian world, or they can continue inside the Army. So it's not when you join, like that's the end of the road. It can be transferred outside as well, mostly to 6-figure jobs with your experience. So it's something really great that we have. Also, the Army is a very tight-knit family. And what I mean by that is the support behind it is like anywhere else. You build professional and personal relationships that you're not going to get just anywhere. What I've seen from being in is I've built so many relationships with people that whenever I'm in trouble, as far as I don't know what I'm doing with my work, I can always depend on somebody. And when I'm down or just want to have a friend, I can always reach out to people because I know like 1,000 people off the bat I can get a hold of. It's very comforting and it helps you a lot when you're growing. Not only is there strong relationships though built inside the Army, but you can take all the passion, enthusiasm, and all the skills you've learned and actually serve your country. So it's a great honor. It's a very prideful thing and you can get a lot out of it. I'm going to move on to Staff Sergeant Garcia, and he's going to talk to you about the Army Reserves. Next slide.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So with the Army Reserve, the key takeaways about the Army Reserve is that your commitment with the Army Reserve is 1 week in the month and 2 weeks out of the year in the summer. And what does that mean? It just means that your obligation with the Army is for you to show up and do training and present yourself to a reserve unit location. Typically they're within 50 miles of your zip code, okay? And what you'll be doing there 1 week in a month, it all depends on what MOS, military occupational specialty, you choose. It could be anything from driving military, big semi-looking vehicles, military vehicles. It could be a welder, it could be a mechanic, it could be any trade job that you could possibly think of, the US Army has it. So you'll be doing a lot of intensive training, on-the-job training in that field. There's also a lot of medical jobs available that the Army Reserve has, anything from emergency room operator to LPN to an RN. So there's a lot of opportunities for you to get in the field, to get your foot in the door. And again, your only commitment is 1 week in a month and 2 weeks out of the year. Okay. And with that, when you go to drill, which is what we call it, or battle assembly, you get to network with a lot of individuals who've already been in the Army or already in that field. So for example, when I went to drill, I actually, my boss was a FBI agent. So he gave me the ins and outs of what I wanted, of what I had to do and what qualifications I needed if I ever wanted to become an FBI agent, or he could at least guide me and mentor me in that direction if I really wanted to. In my old unit, there was a lot of Chicago police officers as well that have a lot of experience, not only in the Army Reserve because they've been in it for a while, but in the civilian side as well with their civilian jobs. So that's just what the 1 week in a month consists of. And again, in the 2 weeks out of the year, you could do it. It all depends on your unit's mission. You could, for example, if you're a military police officer in the Army Reserve, you could be going to a different country or a different state to conduct military police operations of all sorts of different levels. Okay, and so next slide on that one, please. So with that being said, with the Army Reserve, you get the guaranteed training of choice. And what does that mean? That means that before you ship out, before you go to basic training, you will know where your unit's going to be. You will know who you will be working with, where will you be working, and what you will be doing. So that's what we mean by guaranteed training of choice. A lot of enlistments come with cash enlistment bonuses. They are paid directly to you once you have finished your AIT or throughout your term of enlistment. Bonuses, it all depends on the job. No recruiter can promise you a bonus. If it's there, we wish we could give bonuses to every single applicant if we really could, but it all depends on the job necessity, and it all depends on the time that you're also picking your job, all right? Student loan repayment program, 9 times out of 10, a lot of the Army Reserve job that you pick will come with a student loan repayment program. It could be anything from $10,000, $7,000, all the way to $50,000. Okay, what pay looks like in a 1 weekend a month drill, you'll be paid for 2 days, all Saturday and all Sunday. Your take home is going to be just about $200, $224. So again, it's not huge money, but it's definitely extra money in your pocket because you will still have a full-time, ideally a full-time civilian job. So this is essentially a little bit of extra money for you. And not to mention the low-cost health insurance. If you're a single soldier, you will pay about $42, $43 a month for insurance. And if you have a family, no matter how big or how small the family is, it's about $220 a month for that. Okay, and some of the locations that we have Army Reserve units are Taunton, Brockton, Cambridge, Fort Devens, Chicopee, Massachusetts. That's just to name a few. There's definitely more out there, but those are some of the bigger ones that we work with a lot more frequently. Okay, my next slide. Go ahead, next slide, please. And I'll pass it on to First Lieutenant to go over the officer side of it.
Awesome, thank you. And just a reminder, if you guys have any questions during this, feel free to put the questions in the chat, and we'll be able to answer those at the end, or just go ahead and write them down and ask at the end. So now we're going to move forward to the difference between the officers and the enlisted side. So I'm an officer. I've been a commissioned officer for almost 4 years now. So what does it mean to be an officer? Essentially, the equal to the civilian world would be like a corporate manager. Our job as officers is not necessarily to be the hands-on, to be physically doing the job. Our job is to provide oversight, to manage, to provide resources, and take our higher management, or higher echelon, as we call it in the Army's guidance, and turn what they need accomplished into a reality. So we plan that, and then our enlisted soldiers actually execute. We're on ground while they execute, but we're not necessarily doing the execution. So while missions are being done, what are we doing as officers? we are giving what we call bottom-up refinement. We are telling higher levels of management on the ground, this is our successes that we're having right now. This is our issues that we may need some assistance with. This is the status of whatever we're trying to do. So for example, if we are trying to open up some lines of communication and we're putting up comms equipment, we need to be able to let our higher know where we stand so that other units in the area are going to be able to talk. So that as the officers is our main focus, is to drive communication and to help push production. When we're not deployed or doing a real world mission like the firefighting mission we did in California, our job as officers is to help resource training. What I mean by that is, so for example, as an engineer, if you're a horizontal engineer and your job is to build an airstrip, you need to learn how to do that first. So as an officer, we're going to help plan and facilitate training. So of course, before you get that mission, you've had weekly, daily, monthly training on how to build an airstrip. How do you do the math? What resources are needed? What equipment's needed? Are you competent on using those resources? Our job is to make sure that that happens. And then lastly, as an officer, is to not only oversee but take ownership of all mission failures, because as leaders we drive the success of our units, and then also help oversee the successes and make sure that our team is successful as a whole. But as leaders, not only on the officer side, we are the overall pushers of mission. So that's kind of the overall for the officer side. Sergeant First Class Gallagher is now going to talk about the enlisted side.
All right, thank you. All right, so basically when it comes to the enlisted side, it breaks down into two different categories. You have your lower enlisted, and then you have your NCOs or non-commissioned officers. The lower enlisted is E1, which means enlisted 1 rank, to E4, and the NCOs are E5 to E9. When it comes to lower enlisted, like they're going to be the worker bees. They participate and support combat and other military operations, but not only combat, but also humanitarian relief, disaster, or even support jobs such as construction or anything of that matter, or nursing, anything like that. They're also in charge of operating, maintaining, and repairing any kind of equipment. Because we have 152 different jobs, there's a lot of different aspects of what they're doing, but it's all in the same support. Like they all have one goal, and it's to be successful as a unit. So they're also in charge of supervising junior enlisted personnel. They're all responsible for each other. Now, in charge of them is going to be your non-commissioned officers, which are E5s to E9s. There are sergeants. And what they are is they work underneath the officers, and they're in charge of the general support for the officers. And they're the first line supervisors, or I guess co-managers for the actual manager, which is the officer. And that's pretty much it for that. So next slide. All right. Before I jump into educational benefits, I just want to touch back on a couple points for the active duty Army. One of the things that is very important is there's a lot that goes into it. So for instance, you get steady pay. So that means you're getting paid bi-monthly, so 2 times a month without any kind of hiccups because it's federal pay. You're also getting special pay if you have any kind of duty outside of your job scheme that you're doing, you will get paid extra for that. You're getting college money, which I'm going to go over in 1 second. A free place to live because we pay for your housing. You get free food because we're paying you $310, or you're getting a meal card, which is a free pass to the cafeteria 3 times a day, as well as 30 days paid vacations, holidays, and extended weekends. You're getting $400K in life insurance, and obviously a 401K retirement plan. Now, when it comes to the education benefits, they're kind of similar to the reserves, which Sergeant Garcia will talk about in a second, but it's a humongous amount of money. It's what we average around $133,000 in total. And that is $42,250 in tuition assistance for your full-time in, which covers about 130 semester hours for undergraduate and around 39 to 40 semester hours towards your master's degree, all paid for. So we'll see about $4,000 a year towards tuition assistance, which is about 15 credits. Also, you're going to be eligible for the post 9/11 GI Bill, which means once you've served your term of 3 years, you're eligible for it, and it's around $91,000 with your book and board paid for, and it's to continue your education outside of the military. So Sergeant Garcia, just touch real quick on the reserve educational benefits. Next slide.
Absolutely. So again, the reserve benefits, a lot of them mimic the active duty benefits. Obviously, the major big money, it does get cut a little bit because, again, your commitment with the reserve is 1 week in a month. Okay, but nonetheless, you still get what we call tuition assistance, and all that is pretty much free money as long as you are a serving member in good status and you're reporting to your battle assemblies and you're doing the right thing and you're not getting in trouble of any sorts. You can take advantage of that tuition assistance, and that's $4,500 a year. And you can use it all in one semester, whatever it takes. You have a whole year to use that money. Okay, so I encourage everybody who I talk to, who's, you know, every subordinate, to take advantage of the tuition assistance. It's huge. And not to mention, with the Army Reserves, you get the Montgomery GI Bill Select Reserve additional money. So if you qualify, so there's a little bit more to this, but as long as you qualify for the additional amount, you can get up to $375 more just for going to college, to go to school. So if you add that on top of your reserve pay and what they're paying for your classes, you're actually going to be making money just for attending college. So once you put it out and break down the numbers, you almost make money going to college than you having to pay. So that's a huge takeaway that I always tell everybody to lay out, do the math a little bit, and I'm more than happy to do the math with anybody who wants to talk with me, and because I took advantage of the tuition assistance. So definitely it's something that the money's there, and big Army or big government doesn't like it when we don't use the money. Otherwise they'll put it somewhere else, and we don't want them to do that. So next slide, please. So the next thing is, what is a CONAP? So the CONAP, it's just it stands for Concurrent Admissions Program. And it's a partnership that the US Army has, and mainly the US Army Recruiting Command has. Did it break up there? Can you still hear me? Okay, it's a partnership that the U.S. Army has with over 1,900 participant colleges. And the whole purpose of the program is to link the Army active duty and the Army Reserve to a participant CONOP college. And all that means is that the U.S. Army, the Department of Defense, wants any soldier, veteran, any person that has served in the past or currently serving to get accepted to a participant CONAP college. And all that means is that you're going to get guaranteed admission 9 times out of 10, and that the college and the government communicate with each other, so it's an easy payment. So you don't have to do anything but focus on school and pass your classes. That's all you need to focus on. Again, the college is in partnership with the Army, with the Department of Defense. So again, they're communicating, they know what to do so that the funds get added to your account. And I did this all the time. You know, you always see a balance there, and you're always thinking that you have to have that in the back of your mind. The Army will communicate with that college specifically, and they already have an established relationship. So it makes your life a lot easier, okay? And again, the whole goal of the CONAP program is to increase more veterans, more current service members, more prior service members to attend college. We want them to attend college. Don't think just because you join the Army, you're not gonna attend college or you won't have time for college. Active duty or reserve, the whole purpose is the Army wants individuals to go to college. As a matter of fact, a lot of our career progressions are based on how much education you have as well. So going to college is going to do nothing but help you. And I think I just saw somebody's question, if you can transfer from a community college to a 4-year university. Absolutely. Again, we have a lot of, we partner with a lot of universities and colleges, and to make the transition smoother and easier for you to do that switch, okay? Awesome, next slide. So the Minuteman Scholarship, there's a lot that gets, there's a lot of information about the Minuteman Scholarship. I'm only gonna cover like kind of the key points and give just a brief example because there's a lot to it. and it can be a case by case thing. Okay, so a minimum scholarship is pretty much a scholarship for those who want to pave themselves or set themselves up to become an officer. Okay, you don't have to become an officer, but a lot of them decide to become officers because it's a guaranteed job. It's scholarship with the whole purpose for them to become officers at the end of once they graduate. Okay, so just to point out, a college that would accept a 4-year scholarship is Boston College. So all in all, for the first year that you apply and get accepted, and a lot of the requirements that are needed for you to apply for the minimum scholarship are a lot of the same ones that are needed to just join the service at all. There is a little bit more. You do need a couple letters of recommendation. You do need a different type of medical physicals done. But all in all, if you qualify to join the Army, there's just a few more steps for you to qualify to apply for the minimum scholarship. And boards are held every quarter or every semester, I believe, to see if you are eligible and get accepted to the minimum scholarship. So all in all, again, I'm just going to give this a quick example about Boston College. That's a partnering school that we have established relationship with. So for the first year, if you include tuition, and if you, along with the minimum scholarship, decide to do ROTC. ROTC is pretty much reserve officer training course at the college level. And so if you decide to do that as well, that's an additional stipend that you get for participating in the ROTC program as well. It also comes with a book allowance. Every year you get a book allowance. So again, keep in mind that college should not be this expensive if you take advantage of all the benefits that come with it. There's also a sum of SMP pay. Another thing about the minimum scholarship is that you can be in the Army Reserve at the same time. So you can be in the Army Reserve doing 1 week in a month, setting yourself up to become an officer, be on a minimum scholarship, and all you're making money. You're almost going to be making money instead of you getting in huge amounts of debt for the same degree, essentially for the exact same degree. So all in all, if you take advantage of all those, again, the tuition and fees that the minimum scholarship would cover, the ROTC stipend, the book allowance, and the SMP pay, that first year you're going to be paid out, with everything covered. It's about $63,000. So that's just 1 year of going to Boston College. And then your second year, again, with everything included, it's another $63,000. So all in all, if you were to go there for 4 years and you get accepted for the 4-year scholarship, it's about $254,000. So again, if you really, again, we can go over the numbers more in depth, see if you, what benefits you or what route you're in. If you need a 4-year scholarship, a 3-year scholarship, and there's even a 2-year scholarship. So again, book allowance is a big one. SMP pay, which again, you're doing this simultaneously with the Army Reserve. You don't have to, but it's free money, and you're already kind of in the, if you decide to do the Army Reserve and get the minimum scholarship, you're going to college for free. So something to think about. Again, if you have a college in mind and you want to know if that college is would take a minimum scholarship, I can easily find that out for you. Just get in contact with me. I highly recommend this for individuals who want to go into a nursing program. There's a huge good pathway for them as well, and many more, of course. But we'll leave that at that, and please ask me more specific questions if you have them. All righty, next slide, please. All right, so I think I'll pass that on to Miss Sergeant First Class Gallagher. He'll go over some of the qualifications.
All right, thank you. A lot of data out there. All right, so I'm just going to talk real quick about how do you qualify. In order to be qualified to join the Army, you have to be between the ages of 17 and 34. 35 is our cutoff, so that means you have to be in basic training and graduating prior to being 35. So that's why it's 34. 17 is with parental consent. And as far as the for birth, you get to be a U.S. citizen or a resident alien. So that means holding a green card or I-551. As long as you have one of those two, you're going to be good to go. The next is being mentally fit. What I mean by that is being able to pass the ASVAB. And the ASVAB is just the aptitude test that we give to make sure that you qualify with the aptitude to join a specific job. So it doesn't have to be an overall score. They break down to 10 categories to see where you fit the best. And then if the job lines up with the score you have, then you will be eligible for that job. The next is going to be physically fit. So being physically fit is just a health screening and height and weight standards. It's not an actual physical training test like push-ups, sit-ups, all that's in basic training. It's mostly to make sure that you are physically fit in other ways. That way, you don't have any issues in basic training. The last thing is morally fit. When it comes to morally fit, it just means that we are going to be reaching out to local police departments and making sure you have no major law violations or felonies that would stop you from joining. So next slide, please. The biggest thing I want to touch on before we go back to LT is to talk about what a myth is kind of in the military. A lot of times we see people and they think that when they join the military, it's 100% combat arms, but that's just not the case. When it comes to it, it's about 90% support and 10% combat arms. Combat arms are infantry, Cav Scout, field artillery, things of that nature. As far as the support, you're looking at things as nursing, cargo specialists, unit supply, human resources, military police. I know there's 152, so if anyone has any questions about that, I will definitely break down every single job we have available. But what I want the point to be across is that it's not all about combat. Like, we're not trying to send people off to the deserts. There's a lot more support than there is combat arms. So if you're interested in joining, but that's what's stopping you, then that's something you really need to look into. So I'm going to pass it to my LT, and he's going to go in depth with the STEM program. Next slide.
Awesome, thank you. So now we're going to get into probably why most of you guys are here is how can the Army accelerate your career, your education, specifically in the STEM field. So one example that I like to use is, let's say you graduate college, you did pretty well, got yourself a 3.5, 3.7 GPA, and you had a part-time job while you were in college. You go out and you apply to Raytheon with your degree, and you're probably pretty competitive because of your GPA and your classwork in the schools that you went to. That's good. But what if you had joined the reserves or joined the Army, and all of a sudden you have a secret or a top secret clearance? You have up to 4 years of real work experience working on the same systems that Raytheon created. And not only that, you've also gotten the certificates that Raytheon is looking for while you were serving in the military, getting paid, not leaving with debt. It's a great opportunity that's really gonna set you above your peers. So one of the biggest things you're also gonna get in the military is leadership experience. You know, we're based on discipline, we're based on integrity, we're based on hard work. The traits that you're gonna develop in the military are exactly what your big corporations, your big research companies are looking for in their employees. So just saying that you were in the military is gonna put you above your peers in the civilian sector regardless, because of the values that you, in the discipline you've been able to create while you're in the service. Next, developing your network. Sergeant Garcia, he mentioned it a little bit. You never know who your boss is going to be if you're in the reserve. You could end up, being a physician's assistant, and it turns out that your boss is actually a doctor at a major hospital that you're looking to get a job with. All of a sudden, you have a way in. Or, for example, down in Rhode Island, like we said earlier, your boss could be an FBI agent, and maybe that's been your goal your whole life, and that's why you want to join the military, is to get that preference. Now you have an in and someone that can write you a recommendation letter. You never know who you're going to meet in the military, and even in the regular Army, in the active duty side, you meet such a broad group of people that somebody's going to know somebody that once you decide to get out, they're going to be able to help you get a job, use your network, and then the military as a whole is going to be able to help you get a job after the Army. They understand that most people aren't going to do the Army for an entire career. So they actually have programs specifically for when you get out. It's about a 6-month-long program to get you a job, maybe not even necessarily in your Army field, in the civilian world that will set you up for success. Because once you leave the Army, you're still a part of our family, and we want you to succeed outside of the Army. And then lastly, if you are looking for, if you decide that you like the Army and you decide that working for the government is something you want to do, whether that be one of the 3-letter agencies or the Department of Agriculture or working for the state, because you are in the military, you will get government hiring preference, which will put you above everybody else solely because you served in the military. So overall, the Army can be a great accelerant for your career, for your education, and for your skill set. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to highlight 5 different STEM fields that the Army offers jobs in. I'm not going to go super in depth on these jobs, but I want you guys to know some of the careers that you could choose, some of the resources we have. And if you guys have any questions at the end, please reach out to Sergeant Gallagher, Sergeant Garcia, and also go to goarmy.com. They have an entire section of their website devoted to STEM, and there are hundreds of jobs in the Army that are going to 100% correlate to what you want to do with your life and your career goals. So I highly, highly encourage you to check that out. Next slide. So first thing, one of the cooler things in the Army is cyber warfare and IT. A lot of people are very interested in this. So as an officer, you can become an IT officer. You're going to oversee a lot of the communication setups, the cabling, the wiring, and then there's also the cyber warfare officers. Again, you're going to oversee a lot of the things that your enlisted soldiers are doing. As an enlisted soldier, you can be an IT specialist. You can be a satellite communications operator. You can be a cyber warfare specialist. Again, these are jobs you can get before you even have a degree, which is going to completely blow away your competition when you're looking to get another job. Next slide. Looking into the medical and health sciences, essentially, if you can imagine any type of doctor or medical field, nutritionist, dietitian, we have that in the Army. So you can get that job as an officer. Of course, you have to have a degree. You usually have to have your medical degree to do that before you enter the Army. But you can become a doctor, a nurse, a dietitian, a pharmacist. These are all things you can do on the officer side. For the enlisted side, you can be an LPN. You can do a lab specialist. You can be a veterinarian food inspector. There's all kinds of jobs in the medical and health services that can accelerate your career. Next slide, please. As an engineer, this one is near and dear to my heart as I'm an engineer. So as the officer side, we have a couple different things you can do. You can be a combat engineer, which is what I am, a horizontal engineer, and a vertical engineer, just 2 different types of construction. From the enlisted side, you could do geospatial engineering, which is a very, very awesome skill set to have. You get a top secret clearance, and it's easy to get a job out of in the civilian world, out of the military from this one. You can also be a bridge crew member. You can do, again, just normal horizontal construction, working dig assets, all sorts of certifications that you're going to be able to get to help you in the engineering field later on in your career. Next slide. For aviation, it's kind of a hidden little gem in the Army. Most people think the Air Force or the Navy with aviation, but we have our helicopters. So what that means for on the officer side is you're going to spend your first 3 years as a pilot actually flying Blackhawks, Chinooks, maybe a fixed wing plane, a cargo plane. But then you're going to spend, after that, you're going to spend the rest of your career doing what most officers do: planning, resourcing, working on those mission sets for your warrant officers. So as a warrant officer, you're really you have a specialty. So in the aviation world, you're going to be a pilot. This is where if you want to be a pilot, you can fly for all 20 years if you want, but you have to go warrant officer to do that. The requirements for that are a little different, usually a bachelor's degree, but it's something you can even transition to. Say you join the Army as a cook and you meet all the requirements, you can transfer to become a warrant officer pilot in the Army. Pretty awesome job. A lot of officers transfer to that too, because it's just a sweet gig. And then for the enlisted side, this is where most of our mechanics are. Again, I can't harp on it enough. It's really, where are you going to get the 4 years of experience working on helicopters without a degree, without any specialized training, other than outside the military, doing it day in and day out. It's a pretty great field. For any of you guys that do have questions about this or are interested, our station commander out in Brockton, Sergeant Bradley, he actually, before he got into recruiting, was a helicopter mechanic. So his information is on the last slide. Reach out to him, super knowledgeable. He'll be able to help you with any of that. And the next slide. And then looking into the chemical field. There's two parts to this with the Army. One is, of course, your traditional lab work. As an officer, you can be a clinical laboratory scientist. You could be a microbiologist. You could also be a traditional chem officer. And so what your job is going to be there is helping plan and coordinate missions for if there's a radiological attack or a biological attack in a war zone. How do we respond to that? How do we keep our soldiers safe? How do we potentially do that on our enemies? And then also, which is very important, is how do we clean that up and make that safe, which is a big issue in the civilian sector when you look at a lot of the chemical companies. And then as an enlisted soldier, you can be a petroleum laboratory specialist. And then again, we call it CBRN, but chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear specialist. That's where you're really going to be learning about how to and really deploy chemical weapons and stuff like that and keep our soldiers safe. So that's the 5 STEM topic careers I wanted to talk about. Again, if you guys have any questions on any other potential STEM careers or anything that you're interested at all, feel free to email us or put your questions into the chat right here and we'll answer them. But that concludes the presentation. The next slide will just be our contact info. So again, these are our 4 recruiting stations that are in, can we go back one slide? These are our 4 recruiting stations in South Shore. I know we actually have a pretty broad audience today, kind of all over the state. But those are our 4 recruiting stations. We also have recruiting stations in Boston and in the North Shore area. So feel free to reach out to any of our recruiting stations. But if you're in the South Shore area specifically, these are your contacts. And then again, these are our contact information for the 3 people that have been here today. We have our emails, our phone number, and our names. Reach out to us at any time. No questions are too dumb. I knew nothing about the Army when I joined, and I come from a military family. So what I thought I knew, I didn't know. And it was good that I had the resources. So reach out to us, and thank you so much for your time. We're going to open it up for Q&A now.
Great, Chris, thank you so much to you and your team. That was phenomenal. I'm so thrilled about all of the different on-ramps that there are. There's not just one way to join the Army. There really are so many different ways to join. So I want to remind everyone, you can put your questions in the chat, either direct them to me, Bridget, or to everyone. We have a question that I wanted to touch on. There are no, what about the physical requirements when you join the Army? I know that Benjamin Gallagher answered that, but can you answer that a little bit more? Like, are there, can you talk a little bit more about the entry requirements physically and how, basic training, when does basic training come in? What does that look like? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. So basically what I mean by there's no physical requirements is some branches will have physical requirements such as pull-ups, running, things of that nature. We don't require the actual physical fitness test prior to them shipping. We have an occupational fitness test, which is a very easy, short test just to make sure that they have some kind of level of physical ability, but it's nothing that's too daunting. So when they first try to join, in order to be qualified medically, they have to go up and take what's called a sports physical. Mm-hmm. So it's just gonna be a quick overview. They're gonna do things like blood pressure, check their ears, sight, make sure there's no issues like that. Basic movements, make sure there's nothing wrong with their joints. They haven't had any kind of surgeries. If they have, it's documented, things of that nature. Now, once they get their job and they're ready for basic training, 30 days before they ship, we give them what's called the Occupational Physical Assessment Test, or the OPAT. And it's a pretty simple test. It's just a 1 deadlift, 3 long jumps, 3 ball throws, which is just sitting down with a 5-pound ball and throwing it from your chest out and making sure you can do a good distance. It's really not that far. I think it's 300 centimeters, so it's not bad. And then we do what's called a pacer test. So instead of doing a full sprint or anything, we use the pacer test because they can warm up and walk into it. And they only have to do about 35 back and forth, which is at 20 meters. So it's a lot easier than other branches, but it's because we're not expecting them to be 100% in physical shape when they come in. They just need to pass basic training with the PT test, which is your standard push-ups, sit-ups, and 2-mile run.
Okay, so basically, the message is people should not be discouraged from exploring ways to connect and enlist and in whatever capacity they're interested in and there's room to work with them on developing their physical capacity. So basically, don't let that hold you back.
Right, right. And that's not only in the physical aspect as well. I have a lot of people that will tell me, well, I don't know anything about nursing yet, or I've never worked in the mechanical field. The Army's, we're made to like help make you that person. If you want to be a mechanic, you don't need to have mechanical backgrounds. We're going to make you a mechanic. We're not worried if you're in physical shape when you get here. We have a height and weight standard, and that's pretty much it. But as far as being fit and knowing your job, we're expecting you to be at ground zero, and we're going to build you from there. So if that's something that's discouraging somebody, then that's something that they can easily overlook, because it's nothing to worry about.
That's great. And that leads into my next question is, tell me more about the ASVAB, because here at Four Cs, we actually have some tutoring available to help people prepare for that ASVAB test. You mentioned it's an aptitude test. Tell me more about that. Does that help to match people? How does the ASVAB work? I don't know that much about it. I just know it's required and you want to study for it. But does it help really to identify what your strengths are?
Yes, absolutely. So the ASVAB itself is broken into 10 different subjects. So I don't know all of them by heart because it's 10, but it's English, math, paragraph comprehension, arithmetic. It's going to be some mechanical, electrical, and it's based off of those different subjects. Because if, for instance, you come in and you're not that good at math, but you're a genius when it comes to being a mechanic, and that's what you're smart in, then we're not going to worry so much about the math. We made this so, like I said, you don't have to come in there and be concerned, like, I'm not that good at paragraph comprehension. Well, that's okay, because if you're trying to be a mechanic or you want to go into nursing and you have stronger areas in those fields, then that's what we're going to give you for a job. Those jobs will be available. So every occupation that we have in the military requires a minimum score in a certain area. So as long as you pass the overall test, but your line score is good in that area, then you're going to be eligible for that job.
Okay, cool. Thank you. We have another question. What civilian opportunities are available in the Army, specifically in STEM fields?
Okay. Sorry, I
Go ahead,
just want to
Sarah.
take that.
No, go ahead.
So I'll read the question again. Someone is asking, what civilian opportunities are available in the Army, specifically in the STEM field?
Okay,
So in
there,
terms, oh, go ahead, Dr. Gallagher, sorry.
no, sorry, I want you to take it. You're more knowledgeable in this area.
Sure. So it's kind of interesting in terms of a lot of the benefits and a lot of what we discussed today, especially like the education opportunities, are really more if you enlist. There are some opportunities in the civilian world that you can contract through, but that's honestly it's a completely different thing. So what you can do, you can work for the United States Army, you can work for the Department of Defense, you can work for the Navy as a civilian contract. To do that, you actually just go on usajobs.gov. Yeah, usajobs.gov, and you can see all the jobs that are going to be listed, because every single job that the government puts out has to be listed on that website. But in terms of getting the GI Bill, getting that sort of training and benefits that we're talking about today, you do have to enlist. But there are tons of opportunities out there to work for the federal government as a civilian working for the Army. For example, for us, with the organization we have here in New England, we have a lot of our administrative experts and our HR experts are civilian contractors. They aren't a part, they don't wear this uniform, they come in every day as civilians, and they just work for the Army. So there are opportunities like that. I don't know what is exactly out there right now, just because again, I focus more right now on the Army, but if you go to usajobs.gov, you can definitely see where the different branches of the military are hiring civilians.
Great, thank you. I have another question, and because I know there are a lot of women on this call, can you talk about women in the Army and, talk about opportunities that, do women have equal opportunity to apply for any of these same jobs? Are there jobs that you've seen women be really successful in? What is that experience like for a woman that might want to join the Army. And I don't know if maybe your other colleagues might want to speak up, but I just invite that topic because I think, that's important also to consider is what can a woman expect in enlisting, and, are they treated equally? I mean, just all kinds of things we could discuss here, but
Yeah,
speak with that.
we actually have Captain Anna Hayes is on the call right now. I don't know if you want to chime in. You're probably the expert on this one.
Yeah, no, totally. So the Army opened up combat arms to females almost 5 years ago. So, we've really been equal in every single job, and that is kind of unique to the Army. Like the Marines hasn't done that yet. And so I am a combat arms officer, and I was part of one of those first waves in the integration process for field artillery. So it's pretty cool that we really just focus on the mission and not so much on like trailblazing. It's awesome that I can do my job, and yeah, it's been a really cool experience. So I do recommend it for any man or woman to consider.
Yeah, and one thing that I can actually speak on too. So my job as a platoon leader was actually a combat position. And I don't know what the exact timeline was, but I want to say roughly 5-10 years ago, there wouldn't have been any women in my platoon. And we had 4 women in my platoon of 30 people, and it was great. It was awesome. So it's definitely something that it's a great opportunity in the military. There's no job in the Army that you can't do as a woman. For example, Army Ranger School is one of the toughest courses that we have in the military, not just the Army. And we recently have had our first female graduate that course. So, a lot of traditional barriers that people think when they think the military are being broken daily, and it's awesome. And there's a lot of opportunities that weren't necessarily there, especially in the combat field, where you can really advance yourself and really set yourself apart. And there's great opportunities. And again, I got to kind of experience that firsthand with the integration in my platoon, and it was phenomenal. It was great, and everybody really appreciated having more diversity in the unit. It was awesome.
I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing about that. I want to ask another question that I heard as kind of a theme across what several mentioned were certifications. So that is so important in STEM. We know that the technologies are changing so quickly that even within a degree program, sometimes by the time you complete the degree program, the technology has already changed. So certifications are really a way to keep up on technology changes and stay current and to stay career ready. Can you speak just a little more about some of the certifications and the way the Army helps their folks stay current with those certifications? Because I think that's a huge benefit.
Yeah, so in terms of these specific certifications, I don't know a lot of them. From the officer side, I know we get not property management. We get project management certifications on the officer side. And then I can see if Sergeant Gallagher might be able to say something that he's been able to get in the past. But one of the best parts about the Army is because of the large amount of funding that we get and how our military constantly needs to be on the edge and the future of technology, we're constantly training on new equipment, new fieldings, and our guys constantly have to be up to date on those products. So for example, the Army has the research facility just here in Massachusetts at the Natick Labs, or even at MIT, there's a lab that the Army and NASA funds that we're able to continuously push the edge with technology, which means that if we're doing that and we're sending it out to the field, our soldiers need to be up to date on that as well. So it's not even it'd be nice to get this certification. It's a mandatory thing because people's lives are dependent on you having that certification. That's something that I can actually do a little more research on in terms of some of like the IT certifications. I just know some of the engineering ones. For us, it's a lot of, driving dig assets. You get certified on that, which translates directly to the civilian world. Your construction certifications translates directly to the civilian world. But yeah, if anybody has any questions on the specific certifications, I can get that for you. No problem.
I think that's great, Chris. And that's, you bring up also another really good point is that the Army really is the driver of the innovations within these fields, you know, in so many ways that really you're involved with the innovation of these technologies, you know, in the center. So that's fantastic. I think it's been really, really informational, really important information to pass along. And Chris, there's in the chat, is that form, should that go public to everyone? I'm gonna copy and paste that.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
So I submitted the form. Yeah, if we do it right now. This is just a
Yep.
form if you guys, for anybody that attended today would like to fill this out. It's just basic information on yourself and we can reach out to you and help you along with your career, with your education. And just if you have any questions for us at all, we're here to help you. So there's giving us a call or providing your information is in no way any type of commitment. We're just here to help and do what we can to help you guys out in the long term.
That sounds good. I encourage you all to follow up with Chris and his team to find out more about how you can accelerate your career. Thank you all so much for taking part today. We're going to be sharing this recording across the community colleges. And so it'll be exciting to see the impact. Thank you all for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.